Hi, I'm Jim Andre, and in today's video I would like to cover the topic of conspiracy theories. Now, that's a very touchy subject for most platforms, such as Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and maybe a few others. They seem to have a problem with our freedom of speech and opinion, which is basically a constitutional right. So they're actually willing to take away our constitutional right of freedom of speech for no apparent reason that I can figure out, than that they might have something to hide. But in today's video, I'm not going to spew forth any theories that they could consider a conspiracy theory. But the following video is going to be fact. And so factual that gives me a reason personally not to trust the government. And I believe that I have a perfect right in questioning them. Now, it's funny, when the government questions its citizens, it's termed an investigation, but when the citizens question the government, it's called what? A conspiracy theory. The following video is fact. Okay, now this is an actual article from National Archives. It's an actual factual news story about the Tuskegee experiment, the infamous syphilis study. In order to track the disease's full progression, researchers provided no effective care, as the study's African American participants experienced severe health problems, including blindness, mental impairment, or death. Now, this article originally ran on May 16, 2017, and was updated on December 15, 2020 by Elizabeth Nix. Now, it goes on to say that the Tuskegee experiment, it's a tongue twister. The Tuskegee experiment began in 1932 at a time when there was no known treatment for syphilis, a contagious venereal disease. After being recruited by the promise of free medical care, 600 African American men in Macon County, Alabama, were enrolled in the project, which aimed to study the full progression of the disease. The participants were primarily sharecroppers, and many had never before visited a doctor. Doctors from U.S. Public Health Service, PHS, which was running the study, informed the participants 399 men with latent syphilis and a control group of 201 others who were free of the disease. They were beginning treatment for bad blood, a term commonly used in the area at the time to refer to a variety of ailments. Now, here's a picture of some of the participants in that syphilis study. It goes on to say the men were monitored by health workers, but only given placebos, such as aspirin and mineral supplements, despite the fact that penicillin became the recommended treatment for syphilis in 1947, some 15 years into the study. PHS researchers convinced local physicians in Macon County not to treat the participants, and instead, research was done at the Tuskegee Institute, now called the Tuskegee University. The school was founded in 1881 with Booker T. Washington as its first teacher. In order to track the disease's full progression, researchers provided no effective care, as the men died, went blind, or insane, or experienced other severe health problems due to their untreated syphilis. In the mid-1960s, a PHS venereal disease investigator in San Francisco named Peter Buxton found out about the Tuskegee study and expressed his concerns to his superiors, that it was unethical. In response, PHS officials formed a committee to review the study, but ultimately opted to continue it with the goal of tracking the participants until all had died, autopsies were performed, and the project data could be analyzed. Buxton then leaked the story to a reporter friend, who passed it on to a fellow reporter, Gene Heller, of the Associated Press. Heller broke the story in July 1972, prompting public outrage and forcing the study to finally shut down. By that time, 28 participants had perished from syphilis. 100 more had passed away from related complications, and at least 40 spouses had been diagnosed with it, and the disease had been passed to 19 children at birth. And here's a picture of one of the participants getting a blood test. In 1973, Congress held hearings on the Tuskegee experiments, and the following year, the study's surviving participants, along with the heirs of those who died, received a $10 million out-of-court settlement. Additionally, new guidelines were issued to protect human subjects in U.S. government-funded research projects. As a result of the Tuskegee experiment, many African Americans developed a lingering, deep mistrust of public health officials and vaccines. In part to foster racial healing, President Bill Clinton issued a 1997 apology stating the United States government did something that was wrong, deeply, profoundly, morally wrong. It is not only in remembering that shameful past that we can make amends and repair our nation, but it is in remembering that past that we can build a better present and better future. During his apology, Clinton announced plans for the establishment of the Tuskegee University's National Health Center for Bioethics in Research and Healthcare. The final study participant passed away in 2004. Now here's a picture of Bill Clinton and Herman Shaw, who is speaking as President Bill Clinton looks on during ceremonies at the White House on May 16, 1997. Clinton apologized to the survivors and families of the victims of the Tuskegee syphilis study. Tuskegee wasn't the first unethical syphilis study. In 2010, then President Barack Obama and other federal officials apologized for another U.S.-sponsored experiment conducted decades earlier in Guatemala. In that study from 1946 to 1948, nearly 700 men and women, prisoners, soldiers, mental patients, were intentionally infected with syphilis. Hundreds more people were exposed to other sexually transmitted diseases as part of the study without their knowledge or consent. The purpose of the study was to determine whether penicillin could prevent, not just cure, syphilis infection. Some of those who became infected never received medical treatment. The results of the study, which took place with the cooperation of the Guatemalan government officials, were never published. The American public health researcher in charge of the project, Dr. John Cutler, went on to become a lead researcher in the Tuskegee experiments. Following Cutler's death in 2003, historian Susan Reverby uncovered the records of the Guatemala experiments while doing research related to the Tuskegee study. She shared her findings with U.S. government officials in 2010. Soon afterwards, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Secretary of Health and Human Services Kathleen Sebelius issued an apology for the STD study, and President Obama called the Guatemalan president to apologize for the experiments. Okay, so now what I just stated was fact, and I would like to see and challenge the so-called fact checkers to take down this video. Should we question the government? My opinion is, my personal opinion, I'm not telling you what to do, my personal opinion is, yes, we should, and we have the constitutional right to do so.